Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you're all doing well, and welcome to the showdown between the Demons of Chaos and Beastmen. It's going to be myself with the Herald of Tzeentch facing off against Subutai, who's going to be coming in with Malagor, the Dark Peacock of Chaos. Should be quite a bit of fun. Double Soul Grinder, double flyers up in the air with these Tzeentch characters. Should be quite a bit of fun. Now, against the Beastmen, there's a couple things that I do fear. Number one is Mass Ungor Raiders. I feel like they're very cost effective at kind of concaving in. They have stock, you don't really see them coming. And honestly, I find that these things really pepper things down pretty quickly. So to counter that and have a little bit of a, ranged focus on them, I do have the Soul Grinder of Nurgle. So this thing is a 360 range mortar, also a terror-causing monster in melee. Figured to be pretty good against the Beastmen. The Beastmen don't have the best leadership, so the bombardments will be good at softening them up. And of course, if this thing needs to get down and dirty, it can fight also. Now, the other thing of the Beastmen roster that I think is very, very strong is going to be the Minotaurs and Razorgore herds. Minotaurs are obviously very aggressive and just do a ton of damage, and the Razorgore herds obviously are quite good as well. Granted, Demons of Chaos don't really have a lot of armor, and both Minotaurs as well as Razorgores are kind of anti-armor tech, so I don't know how many we'll be seeing, but even still, I was expecting Minotaurs, and Soul Grinders of Tzeentch do have anti-large javelins and good fighting power up close, so I figured just kind of sit these guys a little bit deep set, maybe park it behind objective 2 and 3 here in the middle and have it throw javelins all day at my opponent's troopers. Up in the sky, we do have an Iridescent Horror as well as a Herald of Tzeentch. We got blue fire on both these bad boys, and they both have ranged attacks as well, so I figured this would be very good at screening out Beastmen Lords. I would say about 80% of the time, Beastmen players that I've run into in tournaments and competitive play do come in with a Bray Shaman on a chariot or some sort of a Bray Shaman character. So yeah, the Heralds with blue fire can really screen them out and also put good pressure on them just with their auto attacks. In the back, we do got Plague Bearers and Blues, and that's pretty much going to be it. Against Beastmen, I found it would be a little bit risky to go with like Pink Horrors, any sort of, vulnerable shooting like Flamers of Tzeentch, for example, because of how good the Beastmen are at shutting down shooting. They have good mass with Minotaurs to push through, they have Centaurs, they have Harpies, just tons of mobility, Hounds. It's really tough to protect, and Plague Bearers honestly do super good against Beastmen. The one thing that wrecks them badly, of course, is going to be Ungor Raiders, just kind of focus firing them from a cost perspective. Minotaurs can also give them a little bit of business, but these guys with almost 50 weapon strength put up a great fight against Minotaurs, I think, for their cost. Plague Bearers are a great infantry unit. Now on the other side, we do have the Beastmen. It's going to be Mass Ungor Raiders, very, very good stuff. A great choice against Demons, right? The Demons don't really have much armor outside of the Soul Grinders. Soul Grinders are armored, and the Khorne Heavy Cavalry do have a little bit of armor, but aside from that, Ungor Raiders will be very good against the entire roster. Spears in the front, Minotaurs in the secondary. It's going to be a combination of standard Minotaurs, Butchers of Kalkengard, and I believe the anti-large Minotaurs are in reserve. Malagor going to be flying in with Flock of Doom and Enfeebling Foe, which is very good. A lot of times there's going to be a heavy duel situation when you're playing against Demons of Chaos, maybe like a Be'lakor. Well, it used to be Be'lakor back in the day, not so much anymore, but you often see like those single entity fights, so having Enfeebling Foe is quite good. Mortar bombardment going downtown. Ungor Raiders getting peppered by the pestilence of Nurgle, which is quite good. Was happy about that. And the Herald of Tzeentch and Company going to be diving in on their surfboards. And they're not great in melee, but not terrible. 35 and 35 and 30 and 30. So somewhat respectable, able to do a little bit of damage against the Raiders, do some harassing. They're very small targets with shields, so I figured if they got hit with a little bit, it wouldn't be too much of an issue to escape those bad boys and, regenerate those shields. Now, we do see the Beastmen coming in with the heavy hitters, so the Butchers of Kalkengard moving up and basic Minotaurs. So now you can see the Javelins of Tzeentch should be underway. So the Javelin does hit, does a little bit of damage, doesn't kill a model, I don't think. No, it actually does. So if we can pick off a model with every Javelin, especially against some of the more valuable targets like the Butchers of Kalkengard here, that's going to be quite good. So it looks like Flock of Doom going down here from Subutai, hitting my Plague Bearers as my Heralds of Tzeentch, with a little bit of range pressure on Malagor the Dark Omen. So he's certainly getting poked. Raiders now shooting in, but not able to hit my little tiny flyers. Certainly very, very elusive. Now for my reinforcements, we have Screamers of Tzeentch. Screamers are excellent, excellent, excellent units against the Beastmen. They're basically a hard counter against a lot of their roster. Honestly, a lot of the Minotaurs, the Cows, Razorgore herds, things like that, right? But nonetheless, Butcher's moving in and doing some okay damage against the Plague Bearers. Not bad at all, but Plague Bearers are very hardy folk, so they should be able to kind of take it like champs. Nurgle Mortar shooting back here, you can see doing some okay damage against the Ungor Raiders. And the Javelin Master, the Poseidon Tridents, I don't know what my brain was thinking there, but Tridents getting in and dragging down these Minotaur models. So I was quite happy with that, and a little bit of blue fire also doing some work. Unless on the other side, you see the objectives being captured. So objective 2 is going to be going to Subutai, objective 1 as well. Raiders getting very cost-effective fire. This is like very rough for me. Sending these Plague Bearers in with their 30 armor into the very cheap Raiders. Pretty good trading for my opponent. Nonetheless, Butchers of Kalkengard are pinned down. The Screamers of Tzeentch shields have been penetrated, but even still, their anti-large attacks are really saturating in, and the Nurgle infantry are doing what Nurgle, does well, which is tanking. A little bit of a crumbling there on my blues, but you know what? Someone's got to pay the troll toll. Trying to screen out the Beastmen Lord, and that is a lot of our value. You can see it's 2,000 to 700. But most of that value, of course, is tied up in trying to snipe Malagor. But if we can kind of keep him away from the battle, we still have these annoying flying characters that can be very disruptive. And we also have Fleshhounds of Khorne. I mean, I feel like Demons of Chaos are such an underrated roster. Yeah, they're going to have some matchups in which they're bad, but they have all the colors of the rainbow, man. You got the Fleshhounds of Khorne, you got Plague Bearers, you got Screamers. You have like a little bit of the best from each of the rosters, right? You have Seekers of Slaanesh if you want to bring those in. Granted, not very good in this matchup since you don't really need armor piercing, but even still, very, very good stuff. So on the flank, our Plague Bearers and Blues were able to win it. Some Minotaurs are going to be sent in to try and address that, but it seems they're just running into brick walls wherever they go. The Screamers of Tzeentch flying in with their anti-large attacks, chipping away here at the Minotaurs, and Plague Bearers also doing 50 damage a pop with their swings. And Minotaurs don't have the best melee defense. They're also going to be poison here. You can see they're really being dragged down pretty heavily. As you do get some backfield pressure coming in from the Butchers of Kalkengard, they do dive on the Soul Grinder of Nurgle, but like I said, Soul Grinder is very, very resilient, 90 armor on these bad boys, especially the Nurgle one, and the Fleshhounds of Khorne also do great damage against light armor. So the Butchers of Kalkengard probably going to be torn up, and here the other Soul Grinder is going to be able to put up a nice fight. It does have that sweet, sweet Shield of Tzeentch, which absorbs quite a bit of that damage, so if I can get away, I am going to be able to heal that up, whereas that would normally be HP damage on me, which would be very, very punishing. So big up on the value right now. In the back, we do have Malagor the Dark Omen, and Subutai actually landed him on the ground. So Malagor is going to be waddling back to the battlefield right here. Heralds of Tzeentch up in the sky, just using their auto attacks to drag down Minotaurs. The auto attacks don't do a ton of damage, but honestly, against like lightly armored targets like Minotaurs and most of the Beastmen roster, it really does actually do some considerable work. So as far as the objectives go, on the far side, I thought about trying to grab it, but Subutai did call in some Minotaurs with great weapons and was able to chase my Fleshhounds, which are going to be sprinting across the map, looking to feast like the Heathen Kings of old. Back here, see these Minotaurs rocking 11 models, getting dragged down, and this back pressure was one of the moments that the Beastmen really needed to win. They have a little bit of Raider support coming in, and it is doing some respectable damage, but the 90 armor on the Soul Grinders is able to really counter that. Butchers of Kalkengard and the other basic Minotaurs get just absolutely smashed. And here you can see the effectiveness of Plague Bearer units, right? They've been fighting Minotaurs, getting peppered by Raiders the entire time, but their HP pool, their high melee defense at 41, their high weapon strength really makes them an incredibly cost-effective unit at grinding, while Fleshhounds of Khorne basically saturate from my backfield and move into the archer lines, able to outmaneuver these Minotaurs with great weapons, which are going to be intercepted by these Screamers here. So looking pretty tough for the Beastmen. They're very behind in value as it currently stands, 7.1 to 3. They do have a little bit of healing via the Butchers of Kalkengard. That was pretty much it. And this map is a little bit tricky. The Beastmen, of course, can maneuver between objectives quite quickly, and I have a lot of anti-large in the battlefield, so I could run into some issues potentially dealing with infantry as they do come, but that's why you have the Nurgle Soul Grinder and those type of units. Centaurs piling in to try and battle Fleshhounds of Khorne. In a straight-up fight, if they get the charges on one another, I don't know who actually wins that. I think Centaurs might have, I don't know, they do have a bigger model count. They have 60. They might be able to barely edge that at one out on the charge, but Fleshhounds, I don't know. It'd be something I'd have to test. In the back, we can see Malagor is fleeing the scene. I do get the Tzeentch army ability. Remember, I'm playing Demons of Chaos, so the way Demons of Chaos work is you get the various boons of Chaos, your army abilities, which are on the side of the screen right here, based on the damage that your Lord does. So your respective prince or character has to do some good damage, and my Herald has been able to get some good DAC. So I got the Tzeentch army ability. It's completely randomized. You can get all those. But this blob fight's going pretty good here. You can see mass terror routes on the Beastmen army. Minotaurs getting bunker busted here. Butchers of Kalkengard are on the run. And Fleshhounds of Khorne are going to be coming in. The Bloodhounds of the Blood God getting in, looking to feast on some hamburgers today, baby. And they're certainly going to be nibbling through these Minotaurs as they just get taken out super quickly. And now we're doing a little bit of playing on the side objectives. So knowing I'm ahead by a massive amount of value, we do call them the Nurglings. And I'm usually more of an advocate. I make this mistake all the time. I'll get a little bit excited, try and press too many objectives, which I think can work if you're the more mobile of the two factions, and you can respond to like your opponent's like chess moves a little bit better. But man, sometimes I'm playing like slow factions and I'll try and like press side objectives instead of concentrating my forces to win big fights and get head on value. But yeah, I'm more of an advocate of usually just pushing one or two objectives and keeping your army a little bit more concentrated. Granted, there are factions that don't do that, but here I'm so far ahead in value, the Nurglings can get away with it. So, and also I'm behind on points, and I need to catch up with that. So this fight rages on here, and we do use the Chromatic Tomb and the Locus of Conjuration, which is going to give us power recharge as well as reserves. I believe it gives you like 6 or 7 reserves, which is enough to cast a blue fire or 2, certainly not bad. A little bit of Raider DAC coming in, and in the backfield we do have Malagor the Dark Omen. So the Beastmen Lord has really been very rough this game. He probably costs well over 1,000, maybe like 13, 14, 1,500, and he's only gotten 147 value, and has basically just been running this entire time. But despite the fact that the old Beastmen are down on value, you can see they're still scrapping on the objectives well. And like I said, I went really all in on dealing with the anti-large, with the Fleshhounds and the Screamers and my Soul Grinders, that I didn't have a ton of infantry killing power. If you had come in with a build that was maybe more infantry focused, I feel like my build could have ran into a bit of a wall here. Now on the other side, we have a brawl, Nurglings versus Razorgore Herds. Razorgore Herds unfortunately have 18 melee defense, and their melee attack isn't that great, so the Nurglings are going to be rocking a respectable amount of defense against them with the poison coming in. And the two Soul Grinder characters, or excuse me, the two Tzeentch characters, which I suppose grind souls on their own, their spare time, are going to be moving in with a little bit of range attacks, putting some hurt down on the Minotaurs, and the Razorgore Herds here are certainly out of control, and the subjective will probably go to us with just the swarms of Nurglings. And Plague Bears are a great answer against Beastmen infantry. They will outtrade pretty much all the Beastmen infantry. I think the one Beastmen infantry unit that could straight up beat a Plague Bear might be a Bestigor on the charge, but even still, it probably wouldn't be the most cost-effective fight. Blue Fire down the side, very, very strong. Honestly, there's not much of a reason to bother with Pink Fire. I mean, maybe if you're expecting only infantry, but just spamming Blue Fire down the side of an infantry unit is just so damn effective here. So Enfeebling Foe being cast by Malagor, it looks like he did come back and is cackling in the distance. We're going to be getting the Javelin out, so the Soul Grinder of Tzeentch, let's get the MLG shot. Come on, baby. I know you can do it for the Changer. You got those cool orbs in your hands. Let's see what you're made of here. So the Olympic throw from downtown and 794. And a direct hit, baby. Yeah, I believed in you the entire time. So he's going to be fleeing the scene, most likely will be routing off the battlefield and or getting unsummoned. And now the Plague Bears are moving up from all directions. So, once you get the value, you start to squeeze your opponent here with some pressure. So Plague Bears moving up on each points. And though the Ungor Raiders are quite good, they're just really, really out of steam. A couple Minotaurs do make their way in and are certainly pressuring me. But I should be able to respond with some Screamers out of my Vanguard point here on the side. And the Screamers should be able to kind of clean things up in tandem with the Soul Grinder of Tzeentch, which we're going to be using in melee here to fight against these Minotaurs. So middle objective being claimed. Side objective going to be going to the Chaos Gods. I was about to say the Plague God. I guess technically this one would go for Nurgle, since it is, of course, going to be the Plague Bears doing the heavy lifting. And as far as this build goes, I would say it was like more of a team effort between Nurgle and Tzeentch. The Tzeentchian shooting and magic was very effective in the anti-large from the Screamers, and Nurgle, was able to kind of put the objectives on their back with the Plague Bears and the Soul Grinder of Nurgle and all that stuff, which was quite cool. Yeah, this objective should be a pretty easy win. Soul Grinder teamed up with the old Screamers is plenty of work. Middle objective going in our favor. Plague Bears on the other side as well. And at this point, the Beastmen are just too far behind to really do a whole lot. They're going to be trickling in units. When you have this much of a value lead, you're going to be able to just easily counter them because you just have so many more units on the battlefield, and you can just kind of wait to see what they bring in. And you can counter it with Screamers and Fleshhounds and all those different units. But it's kind of rekindled my interest in playing Demons of Chaos. I've been practicing a little bit, and I honestly feel like they're a very underrated competitive faction. I think the Beastmen actually have like a 50% win rate. Beastmen are actually doing really good. They have a couple of matchups in the meta that they're quite good, like against some very meta factions, which is cool to see. So I'm happy Beastmen are performing well this season. And as far as the Demons of Chaos go, I don't think they're getting played too much, but I do feel like there's some hidden potential with them. Granted, I have to give it a try in more matchups, but there's some really cool character combinations. You can go for like a little bit of Tzeentch sniping. You could come in with a Slanesh Lord for Blissful Rapture to give your entire army a melee attack. You could do that with like Nurgle units, right? Go super wide with Plague Bears and then buff their melee attack with the this Slanesh. There's a lot of neat stuff you can do. It's very, very fun. So as far as big performance go, 1,500 little characters certainly paid for themselves, or at least came close. 1,300 on the Javelin Man, and I would imagine some of the doggos feasted well, as the Screamers also did good at 1,800 value. For the Beastmen, the Minotaurs just honestly, they didn't perform well. I almost think just spamming mass Gore Herds with the dual weapons and then the shields, backed up by Ungor Raiders and Centaur support, could be a little bit stronger than Minotaur spam, but I don't know, something to try out, just a conspiracy theory. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this one with the underdogs back in both these factions, kind of underdogs to an extent, and we'll be back with more sweet replays soon. Take care.